Hello YouTube, the subject of this video is going to be the concept of fair trials and legal reform, with the example nation being the United States. The purpose of this video is to encourage more thought and discussion in the comment section of my political videos, and encourage people to consider information and make up their own minds more often. You'll see what I'm talking about later in the video. Now, in the United States, American law has a guarantee for all its citizens, a right to trial by jury of peers. However, I don't think this guarantee is followed very well, or even at all, in more and more frequent cases. But even setting cases where people are indefinitely detained without trial aside, and people do get a trial, I don't think it's as common as it should be that one receives a jury of peers. Think about it for a moment. 12 random people are simply that, 12 random people. They don't know anything about you or your life, and by sheer probability, if this is a more serious case, probably know nothing about the circumstances you are or were in. Consider the following example. You have someone who's on trial for shooting and killing someone. It's already confirmed that they did the killing, and the defendant doesn't deny that. However, the defendant claims that his actions were necessary. Self-defense, or he killed someone who raped and murdered his daughter, or some other sort of case where we know he shot and killed someone, but now we have to decide if he should be penalized, and how severely if so. 12 random people aren't a jury of peers, because 12 random people are not necessarily capable of being peers. An individual who hates guns and wants them banned is already predisposed to consider the defendant guilty. Vice versa, an avid guns rights activist might also be predisposed to view the scenario in a lighter context. And most likely, neither of these people understand the stress of actually being in a threatening scenario when someone is breaking into your house at 2 in the morning, and you have to wonder how many assailants there are, if they're armed, if they're planning to kill witnesses, where they are, what'll happen to your family, and now have to make split-second decisions while you're there in the dark sweating with an increased heart rate, which may include being killed or severely injured or possibly killing someone else. Even in the case of the people who are predisposed to view you as innocent, neither of the two example individuals that I gave are capable of truly being peers, because they've never been in your shoes. Now, in the United States, we have the highest conviction rate on the planet, but is that all the fault of the big bad government? Certainly some of it is, with the incarceration of nonviolent marijuana charges and the like, but all of it? I don't think so. There's a saying in the gun prohibition debate, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Basically what that means is it's better to shoot someone and risk being condemned in a trial than it is to risk dying and some nasties happening to your family. But who comprises those 12? We have juries that are made up of citizens, and these juries are contributing to our conviction rates. It's too easy for someone who hasn't had their life at risk, and most likely will never be placed in that situation, to condemn your actions, because that standard doesn't have to be applied to oneself. It's a state of hypocrisy that you can commonly observe in school children, but I feel we do a poor job of getting rid of this before they become adults. So I considered, how can we make the legal system more fair? And my solution was, not surprisingly, to make it more meritocratic. And I believe I've devised some upgrades. I want to reform the guarantee to a jury of peers to actually provide a jury of peers where possible. Say, for example, you have a self-defense case like the one I mentioned earlier. Instead of 12 random people, you get, for example, 12 military veterans that have confirmed kills or have been wounded in action. Other potential candidates for your jury include police officers that have been injured in the line of duty, and other normal citizens that have been in similar situations and were found to be acting justly in the eyes of the law. Now your jury of peers is a jury of actual peers. These people know what it's like to have one's life at risk, and they can understand your situation, and it is they who will decide if your conduct was good or bad. Because the United States has the highest incarceration rate on the planet, my prediction is that the implementation of such a system would have the statistical result of a sharp drop in conviction rates. I conclude this because I've inferred that we accuse people falsely more often than we let people go in cases we shouldn't. A jury like the one I cited may also be less easily duped by a lawyer, and that may result in an increase to convictions in some cases, but on the whole my prediction is a decrease. My goal was simply to make it more fair. Since we have such a high conviction rate, I find it likely that making it more fair would appear as a reduction in conviction rates. But now I want you, the viewer, to get involved, because my plan so far has a problem, in that I can only apply it to some specific situations. There's always going to be more bizarre cases where finding a jury of qualified peers may not be easy or even possible. I think that by educating people better and engineering a culture that encourages people to empathize with another scenario, we can improve that in a general sense, but that's more on the topic of education, and I'll discuss that in a later video. For right now, I want to expand the ability to provide more qualified juries, and my ponderings have led me to an experiment, one which I do not yet have predicted results. The experiment is for rape cases. In the United States, most citizens are subject to conscription for jury duty. Suppose we do as follows. We take 2 people whom were falsely accused of rape and found to be proven completely innocent, with zero margin for doubt. When the guy was allegedly committing the rape, they were on a security camera at a gas station, or DNA evidence proved them innocent, or some such. Then we take 2 legitimate rape victims, which we also managed to prove conclusively. We now have 4 people, 2 falsely accused of rape, and 2 rape victims, none of which are in a position to judge each other. We put these 4 on a jury and have them overview rape cases, and put them in a room and have them discuss the case with each other. The idea is to make them understand each other's position and thereby approach the case more fairly, and we can test the effectiveness in many ways. And we can arrange it so they look at previous cases that have already been given verdicts, or fabricated cases for them to go over so no one actually gets convicted as a result of these little experiments. The subjects wouldn't be informed of that yet, though. They'd think they're looking at real cases. We could tell them we're trying a new format, or use staged court cases with actors, or any other number of tricks to do that. We could then, for example, show them cases where someone was later let go on DNA evidence and see if they pass a guilty verdict or an innocent verdict and compare the success rate. There's plenty of different tests that we could do. Those are just a couple of examples. And maybe 2 won't be optimal. Maybe 3 of each will be the optimal combination. Or maybe the experiment will be a total failure, and the falsely accused will always vote innocent, and the victims will always vote guilty, regardless of the evidence. But either way, once their contribution is over, they'd be informed of the nature of the experiment they're participating in and would sign non-disclosure agreements. Once the experiment is over on the whole, the non-disclosure agreement would be lifted, and its results would be made public and submitted to notable peer-reviewed scientific journals. If the test is a success, and we conclude that it reduces false accusations and increases correct convictions, then the test becomes subject to public scrutiny, and if no glaring oversight or flaw in the test is found in a reasonable span of time, then it would become standard procedure for handling rape cases. Unless, of course, the experiment was a failure, in which case it's back to the drawing board. But I want you, the viewer, to think about this experiment. I want you to consider what you think the results of this experiment would be, and post your contemplations in the comments section below. Additionally, I want you to think about other methods of implementing more fair trials, or other experiments like the above that we could conduct. The purpose of this video was to encourage more individual thinking and get people to come to their own conclusions, and hopefully it's been successful. So, think, ponder, philosophize, develop psychic powers and take over the world, and like my video and subscribe. I'll see you next time.